Hello again, Dan Alasso, Making History. And today I've got another short chapter for you from my biography of Dr. Charles Knowlton. And this one is chapter 26, and it's called Arrested in Taunton. And as always, I begin with a quote from Knowlton's own memoir. And Knowlton said, "The decision is that physical truth is a moral evil. This, to the ear of reason, is a clap of thunder. And to the degree this peculiar attribute of human nature is possessed by my persecutors, it cannot fail to strike them dumb. My case was reported in the newspapers a libel on public morals, but the Fruits of Philosophy is by no means calculated to excite any passion, except it be that of gratitude, while the design of it is certainly and obviously that of utility." And now my elaboration of Knowlton's story. Charles Knowlton had a tiger by the tail. Compared to modern materialism, his new book was an overnight success. Fruits of Philosophy sold particularly well in New England's growing industrial cities, where workers were very interested in Knowlton's claim that families could and should choose how many mouths they had to feed. Charles's message of self-determination, however, also provoked an immediate response from people who had traditionally been in charge of both public and private morality. In the early spring of 1832, Charles was arrested in the manufacturing town of Taunton, Massachusetts, for selling Fruits of Philosophy. The objection to his book, Charles was informed, was that it was obscene. But since Massachusetts had no specific obscenity laws, the charge, he was told, was libel. Charles hired a lawyer and read up on the state's libel laws. He appeared before the Bristol County Superior Court in April 1832. Charles was surprised when he appeared in Taunton for his trial that the judge prevented him from using the lawyer he had paid to defend him. Although he was required to speak in his own defense, Charles wasn't overly alarmed. Before Knowlton's arrest, the presiding judge had ordered a copy of Fruits of Philosophy. And Charles believed that he was qualified to, quote, defend the character of the work as well as anyone who had not devoted so much attention to the subject matter. The state's new libel law put a lot of emphasis on the defendant's intentions, and Charles thought he'd have no trouble proving that he intended the book to be useful rather than obscene. Not using a lawyer for the trial, Charles thought, would also save him money. As always, cash was scarce. An impartial physician testified in Knowlton's defense, saying that Fruits of Philosophy contained nothing new to him. Charles was pleased when the doctor reassured the court that what he'd written about anatomy and reproduction could be found in any medical textbook. But he was also a bit peeved that the doctor, quote, had given the work but a momentary examination. Charles's birth control method, quote, the idea for which I particularly value it, was entirely new and groundbreaking. If the public became aware of his solution to the population question, Charles said, quote, no selfish little soul would again expect to acquire a little popularity by attempting to suppress the circulation of it. Charles defended himself, he said, quote, as well as the agitated state of my mind would permit. He believed he had convinced the judge and jury that his intentions had been honorable. A leading local attorney who watched the case assured Charles, quote, no questions but that you believe the work to be useful. And the judge stated in his decision that Fruits of Philosophy was, quote, no more obscene than other medical books. But in spite of the court's acknowledgments, Charles was found guilty and fined for selling the book. The chief argument of the state's attorney against the book Charles said, was that it was too small. Although Fruits of Philosophy contained only one thing, Knowlton's birth control method, that couldn't be found in standard medical texts, it was clearly not a medical text. Fruits of Philosophy had been written in plain language and cheaply printed to make it accessible to regular people. The real point Charles understood was that, quote, our courts have decided that it is illegal to sell a medical book to anyone not a member of the profession. And the one new thing Fruits of Philosophy did contain, a practical way to prevent conception, had been judged obscene and against the public good. Although he was surprised by the injustice of the Taunton verdict, Charles was able to appreciate the irony when several people who had watched the trial approached him afterwards to buy a copy of the Fruits of Philosophy. One of the jurors, and a steady, hard labor-looking man he was too, Charles said, about 40 years of age, came to see Charles the day after the trial. Well, we brought you in guilty, he said. We did not see how we could get rid of it. Still, I like your book, and you must let me have one of them. So, apparently the guardians of public morals hadn't convinced even jury members that Fruits of Philosophy was against their interests. And on a personal note, I can't help thinking that the first quote, where Knowlton says, the decision is that physical truth is a moral evil, and he underlines physical truth and moral evil, is rather important and timely. So I'll leave it at that for today. I hope you found this a little bit interesting. Thanks very much for listening. I'll see you again